Hello, everybody. What's up? Welcome to Moment of Clarity. Thanks for being here, beautiful humans, wonderful people, extraordinary bags of flesh on this tiny rock hurtling through space. That last one didn't sound as good as the others, I guess. But thanks for joining me. Thanks for being here. Please take a second to hit subscribe and share this and all this stuff. We have, I have amazing and important news stories to talk to you about today. I am not actually sure at the moment whether Hermela Aragawi is going to join us. She was slated to, but perhaps the time zones got confused or something else. Sometimes this shit happens with live television. And I realize this is not live television, but sometimes this happens with live internet. I figured since maybe we got our wires crossed or something on this scheduling, that I would still go ahead and do an awesome show for you. And I know it's going to be awesome because you're amazing. That's right. That's right. You come here for the compliments. I know that. Most people show up just for the compliments. But if it turns out that Hermela does not, in fact, make it, I will have her back on soon, and we will dig into the Ethiopian crisis, Ethiopian war games that the U.S. is backing over there. It's basically a cut and paste military industrial complex situation where we, try and create regime change by watching a lot of people get killed in Ethiopia. And there's some Eritrea factors in there as well. But either way, I will start off with some other stories, Ukraine, Biden, and more. And I also want to say that for those of you who are maybe new to my stuff, I do the first 15 minutes on all of my platforms, YouTube, Facebook, everything. But after 15 or 20 minutes, the rest continues at rumble.com/LeeCamp. So if you want the full experience, if you want the full 45 minutes to an hour, please go over to rumble.com/LeeCamp and you can watch over there, and it is free to watch and free to comment over there. And just click on the video that says The Secret War with Ethiopia. Even though that's the title, we might not be covering that on this episode, but we'll get into a lot of great things. So please go over and subscribe, because I am one of the most censored comedians in America, and therefore I have to move to platforms that won't censor me, Rumble being one of them, the other one being Locals. And if you want to become a member there, you can type LeeCamp.net, and you will get all kinds of cool shit over at Locals. All right. Let's begin with an analysis of what's going on in Ukraine and where it stands at this point. And this is not the analysis that you will get from your garbage mainstream media. I regret to inform you. I know you come here for all of the same shit you hear on CNN. And when I don't provide you with CNN bullshit, you're like, oh, man, that's why I'm here. But in fact, this is not the analysis that you get from CNN or even really Fox News or MSNBC. I know Fox is a little bit of a rogue area where at times they will seem to be anti-war, really just because they're isolationists and they want to create a fascist state here at home. They don't want to export our fascism as much, perhaps, as some of the other networks. But anyway, this is an analysis on Ukraine. It's printed at popularresistance.org. Popular Resistance is a wonderful outlet. They do amazing shit. And you may ask, for this analysis of Ukraine, Lee, why do you trust this? Why? And you should ask this about anything, but why do you trust this analysis of Ukraine when there are so many other people giving analyses and things like that, and so many of them are wrong, and your mainstream media is giving bullshit analysis? In fact, our administration, the U.S. government administration, has admitted that they are telling you false news. They have admitted that their intel is less than accurate, and they present the stories as if they're accurate. So surprisingly, in a change, they actually admitted that for once. So that was a refreshing moment. But the reason I trust it is it has to do with media literacy. And there's two reasons. One is because popularresistance.org, I've known it for years. I know the people that created it, Margaret Flowers and Kevin Zeese, and they do wonderful work. And I have rarely, if ever, seen Popular Resistance be wrong or repost things that are incorrect. So that's part of it. And then the secondary thing is they're reposting something coming from a a blogger, a commentator who goes by Moon of Alabama. And I know that's weird. Why would you trust someone named Moon of Alabama? That's bizarre. And does he mean he's mooning someone in Alabama, or does he mean there's a moon over Alabama, or what's he talking about there? The reason I trust it is, again, because I've been reading his stuff for years, and it has always proven not just accurate, but able to predict future events, future truths that later become clear. And I've never seen it be wrong. So, if you don't want to trust it, feel free not to. But I'm telling you why I trust this media, what media literacy I used to come to this analysis. And I hope that helps you make your decision. So this is called Ukraine Beyond Day 100. And he starts out by saying, Colonel Marcus Reisner of the Austrian army presents the current state of the war in the video that he links. Two of the facts he mentions were new to me. The Ukrainian army has moved 7 brigades of its territorial defense forces from the west into the area east of the Dnieper. And if these were fully manned, I think he means manned. If these were fully manned, each will have some 3,000 soldiers. There are a lot of troops. That's a lot of troops, but they are pure infantry without heavy weapons with extremely little training. Morale is so bad because those troops do not fare well. Ivy Smith, who's another writer that I trust, who writes at Naked Capitalism and has always done a good job. She wrote, the war situation is developed not necessarily to Ukraine's or the West's advantage, but they plan to negotiate when they've turned things around a bit. Yeah. So let's just keep this proxy war going. Let's just keep seeing how many die. And then once we turn it around a bit, we'll negotiate. Here's a quote, a very long established contact forwarded this message from a former senior U.S. military official saying that there are 65% casualty rates. Now, Moon of Alabama says, I very much doubt that Russian units, the way they're currently fighting, have casualty rates of more than 10%. And other analyses that I've heard have said much lower, closer to 10%. Russia is regularly rotating units in and out to give them breaks and rest. As this permanent grinding continues, the Ukrainians will soon reach a breaking point. And for those who don't know my view on this war, I'm opposed to the invasion. I'm opposed to the Russian invasion. I'm opposed to war of all kinds. However, I also, and I like to preface this, I also am not a child. And therefore, I can analyze the entirety of a situation and look at the fact that the U.S. helped cause this, wanted to cause this, and is now causing Ukrainians to die to continue this. We said from day one, those of us who were independent journalists who actually gave a shit about human lives, we said from day one that this needs to end at a peace table. It will end in a peace table eventually. So basically what you do by drawing it out for 6 months or a year or 2 years is basically just find out how many Ukrainians you can kill. You use them as cannon fodder in a proxy war, and the U.S. is doing exactly that. And I've gone into detail in past episodes about why the U.S. is doing this and why it is so, quote unquote, beneficial in the minds of our ruling elite, with one exception, which I also did an episode of this, one exception of the ruling elite. And maybe it's because he's 99 years old and he's really just a kind of empty shell at this point. But Henry Kissinger realizes this is bad, not just for Ukrainians, but bad for American empire. And he himself said that this needs to end immediately and that they need to come to a peace table and agree to a peace, a truce, because this is just using Ukrainians as cannon fodder. Now, Kissinger doesn't give a shit about human beings, so he only gives a shit about American empire. So he thinks that this is actually going to hurt the American empire. And also, obviously, for you and me and those of us who have a moral core, unlike Henry Kissinger, we also care about the human beings who get hurt in this as well. But let's continue. Let's see here. So this is from Spiegel. Why has Germany been so slow to deliver weapons? Yes. Why is Germany not helping kill more people? I'm not even going to try and pronounce that word. The BND, Germany's foreign intelligence agency, fears that Ukrainian resistance could even be broken in the next 4 to 5 weeks. So that's Germany's intelligence agency saying Ukrainian resistance is just about done. In a German language interview, Colonel Reisner explains what that breaking of Ukrainian resistance would mean. 4 mobile rocket systems, that's pure symbolic. Here's another quote. You spoke of a chain reaction that could develop on the Ukrainian side. The answer, the danger is that general panic will break out in the pocket. I think that means the pocket of the Ukrainian resistance, which is largely surrounded by Russian military. And the soldiers will try to retreat to a favorable line that is easier to hold. If this is done in an orderly manner, that would be a line east of, not going to try and pronounce those either. But if panic breaks out, that last line could be much deeper. That moment would allow for a Russian deep operation in which a second echelon of fresh Russian troops would break deep in the rear of the Ukrainian army on the west side of the Dnieper. Wreck Ukrainian. Well, it doesn't say wreck. I think he means wreck. Wreck Ukrainian supply lines and chase down remaining resistance. Some grown-ups recognize what is up. So yeah, again, I said, if you're not children, you can actually analyze what's going on there. If you want to be CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, and you want to behave like fucking infants, then it's a lot tougher to see what's going on there, isn't it? So Jeffrey Sachs, a professor at Columbia University who served as an advisor to 3 United Nations secretaries general, said that, quote, it is in Ukraine's interest to return the negotiating table, to return to the negotiating table, which it has refused to do since last March. I believe that the U.S. should recognize that it acted irresponsibly in pushing for NATO enlargement in Ukraine and Georgia. This is a fucking professor at Columbia University who's an advisor to the UN secretaries general is like, hey, the U.S. created this by expanding NATO, and maybe Ukraine, if it doesn't want to watch all of its citizens die, should fucking go to the table rather than doing this U.S. proxy war where no Americans die. We just watch Ukrainians die. Okay, so this is actually from The Hill, and The Hill, you guys probably know a little about The Hill. The Hill largely is a kind of mainstream, standard. It's like I'd put it in the realm of MSNBC, not that much different from them, except for they have Rising, which at times can have other viewpoints. And, Crystal Ball used to do Rising, and she obviously has done a pretty good job. And now she's not there anymore. So it has its moments, but for the most part, Hill is pretty standard mainstream outlet. So this is from The Hill, and it's called The Unpalatable Truth in Ukraine. Quote, that leaves only one other conceivable outcome. So basically, that leaves one conceivable outcome. A fragmented and partly dismembered Ukraine, neither fully part of the West nor entirely within the Russian sphere of influence. A Ukraine fragmented in that the whole of the Donbass and perhaps other territories will be left beyond Kyiv's control, partly dismembered in that Crimea will remain part of Russia, at least in Russian eyes, and not fully part of the West, in that it will not be free to join NATO or even to have a meaningful partnership with the EU. Simply put, this outcome is not only not impossible, it's not even improbable. That sounds about like what will end up happening. This is from Gilbert Doctorow, How the War Will End. Quote, to be specific, from the very beginning, the number one issue for Moscow as it entered upon its military adventure in Ukraine was geopolitical, to ensure that Ukraine will never again be used as a platform to threaten Russian state security, that Ukraine will never become a NATO member. We may safely assume that internationally guaranteed and supervised neutrality of Ukraine will be part of any peace settlement. It would be nicely supported by a new reality on the ground, namely by carving out several Russia-friendly and Russia-dependent mini-states on the former territory of East and South Ukraine. The solution removes from the international political agenda many of the accusations that have been made against Russia. There will be no territorial acquisitions. If Kyiv is compelled to acknowledge the independence of these three or more former oblasts as demanded by the populations, that is a situation fully compatible with the UN Charter. In a word, a decision by the Kremlin not to annex parts of Ukraine beyond the Crimea, which has long been quietly accepted by many in Europe, would prepare the way for a gradual return of civilized relations within Europe and even eventually with the United States. These quotes are basically showing that many are coming around to the analysis that fucking all of us with half a brain were saying from the beginning of this thing, that that Russia may be wrong to invade, but that they're not going to stop until they have made Ukraine into a territory that will no longer threaten their security. And no, they're not. The idea that Putin is just Hitler and he just wants to grab up land is idiotic. And you haven't actually analyzed anything about the situation. You've just watched CNN and parroted the garbage they've said. Here's from Disarming Ukraine. Looking at this. Actually, that's about a map that I don't have, so that won't make any sense. So I'll just conclude. This is from Moon of Alabama at the end here. Russia can now afford to go slow with this project. Time is on its side. Oil and gas prices are up. For Russia, the war is monetarily neutral to profitable. The West is already disunited. As the result of its sanctions on Russia, its economies will slip into stagflation with social unrest just around the corner. Over time, the urge for lifting the self-defeating sanctions will only increase the West's acceptance of Russia's solution to its NATO problem. And that's exactly also what Kissinger said, is that, or believed. And again, the reason I think it's important to quote Kissinger here is because he is a maniac, a fucking stooge of empire. I mean, although in many ways he used to be one of the ones steering the ship of empire. He created the petrodollar. He came up with that idea that guaranteed U.S. empire, at least for a while. And he sees that although the U.S. oligarchs at the moment think that this is useful because they think, oh, this allows us to put in sanctions and cut off the Nord Stream 2 pipeline and stop Russian oil, ban Russian oil from Europe. In long term, it's going to cause Europe is going to have loads of economic problems. The United States as well. Gas prices in the U.S. are already shooting through the roof. And so this actually hurts U.S. empire. So that's why Kissinger is saying, fucking end this thing. And yet the U.S. oligarchs think they're benefiting by using Ukrainians as cannon fodder. And it really is like, I mean, it's sad on so many levels. And it's sad to see how many people have fallen for this garbage. They think that wearing a little Ukrainian flag pin on their jacket or their hat or something means that they stand for peace, when it doesn't. It means you want the U.S. position of peace. And the U.S. position of peace is continue this war for as long as possible. So I thought that would be an important update for where the war in Ukraine is going right now. And I have another, well, actually, let me do this last little piece before we move on to some other stories. And again, those other stories will be at rumble.com/LeeCamp. It's free to watch over there, free to comment. Please join us over there. But this actually furthers what I was just saying, in that even Joe Biden, hold on, mystery juice. Gotta take a sip of the mystery juice. Joe Biden actually is agreeing because he was pressed. And I know that this headline I'm about to show you is from the New York Post. New York Post is one of the worst outlets that has ever fucking existed. I mean, honestly, if you need something to really wipe your ass, but get like deep in there really get like a up to the knuckle, then you should use the New York Post. But that being said, they were one of the only ones reporting this comment by Joe Biden, and they have the quote in there. So it is a quote from Joe Biden. He was pressed in an unrelated press conference to about whether the end of the war in Ukraine would involve Ukraine ceding territory. Basically, will they come to the peace table and end this thing? And Biden says Ukraine might have to give Russia land in negotiated settlement, which is basically what, again, all of us with half a brain have been saying from the beginning of this thing. The U.S. helped create this war. We wanted a proxy war. We've got our proxy war. But how does it end? It only ends with Ukraine and Russia sitting down and basically Ukraine ending up being a neutral state where the Donbass region, which many of them consider themselves Russian, not Ukrainian, is somewhat independent, enough so that you don't have 15,000 have died in Donbass since 2014, since the Maidan coup, the U.S.-backed Maidan coup powered by Nazis. You know how they have those commercials where they're like powered by Intel or powered by whatever chip is inside the computer. Well, the Maidan coup was powered by Nazis. We have Nazi 2.0 power. And we knew this is how it was going to end. And now Biden's just saying this is how it's going to end. So Biden's admitting it. And I don't want to give the New York Post any more time than that, but I did go read his quote, and he is basically pestered into, how do you see this ending? Could it end in a peace? Blah, blah, blah. And finally, he admits, yeah, this could end with a negotiated settlement, which is what everyone said. So when those of us who are speaking out and being censored online for doing it, we're saying, listen, fucking don't fight war. Don't try and fight the Russian military, which is far stronger than Ukraine. Get to a table and come to an agreement where the U.S. is no longer funding and arming Nazis at your border, and settle this thing so that people don't die. We were mocked and we were censored, but here we are. Exactly what we said. Okay, so I'm about to finish this live stream at rumble.com/LeeCamp. So please, for all of you who are on, and I can see a lot of you are there, all of you are on YouTube, on Facebook, please head over to rumble.com/LeeCamp, because I am one of the most censored comedians in America, and that's why I can't trust YouTube. Yes, some of you are watching on YouTube, some of you are watching on Facebook. However, I can't trust those platforms to actually function and not delete me. So I have to build up my Rumble page. So rumble.com/LeeCamp. I will see you over there. And for those of you already on Rumble, thanks. And we will continue in about 2 seconds. Just give me one moment.